exactly do we change from the lukewarm Christian to the burning hot Christian again? How do we gain that again?
I think that's a question that a lot of ministers would have. In every church around this nation, you have some folks that you can count on. They have a good, vibrant spiritual life, but then you always have some on the fringe who you always try to pull in, and for some reason you just can't seem to. I see youth that when they're young, and then they just before they get into early teenage years, they're involved in ministry. They're singing, they go to camp, they
Choir.
testify at church. But then when they hit the teenage years, a lot of other things, especially for girls, boys become important. A lot of guys, girls become important, and we see that vibrant spiritual life that they had cool off. How do we get the teens and folks in the early 20s pulled back into the fellowship again? And how do we get them to have more of a spiritual life than just one that's lukewarm? And we see families again who are raising children, and they're involved in church and attend on a regular basis and involved in the workings of the church, perhaps teach Sunday school or some kind of a ministry in the church, but then their children grow up, and now the mom and dad, they don't have as much responsibility for the family anymore, so they have a lot more free time. And the things that they have always wanted to do, like maybe just take a vacation or go somewhere or do something,
right.
Now that they don't have the responsibility of the children, they have more time for themselves. And we see sometimes those families fall away from the church, and their spiritual life suffers for that too. I'll say this first, that we need the fellowship, and for those teens that get away from the fellowship and get away from the church, we see their spiritual life cool down. For the families who are middle-aged and we see them go out and do a lot of things on their own and get away from the church, we see their spiritual life cool down too. When I grew up, I was a kid, and we lived in a house that had a fireplace. We were very poor, and no electricity, no running water, but we did have a fireplace and we kept warm. I noticed as a kid I would poke around in the fire a lot, and I could take an ember and I could pull that ember aside, away from the flame. Well, that ember that was in the fire, while it was in the fire, it was glowing and it was hot and it was red, and you could tell it had some heat to it. But if I pulled it away from the flame, it didn't take very long for that ember to cool down. It cooled off, and I could see the redness of the heat just disappearing until the ember was just more or less just a cold piece of ash. But if I took that ember and if I moved it back into the fire again, it didn't take long for that ember again to start burning and get hot and turn red with heat. So it's important that, if we can, when our teenagers grow up and get away from the church, it's important that we do whatever we can to pull them back into the fellowship so that their spiritual life can be hot again. Same thing with those middle-aged families, that their responsibility to their children are just not there like it used to be. It's important that we take steps to pull them back into the fellowship to where their spiritual life can become vibrant once again.
Wow, see this here. It's just like they said, parables in the story of parable. You go out and knock the land back in. You don't let them go too stray. He will only let you stray so far. And just like we are our children, we can only let them stray so far. We need to come back and put them back in. We have got to bring them back from the outside of the coldness and bring them back towards the fire and cause them to burn again. We have got to bring them back. No one else can do it. What do you think?
I think it is up to us, and I think the illustration you just used, when a lamb went astray, the story says that Jesus left the 99 and he went after that one little lost sheep. And for those that have strayed away from the fellowship, I think it's important for the body of believers, the church, their friends and families still in church. It's important that we seek after those that have gone astray and do our best to let them know that they're loved, that there is still a ministry for them, and to try to pull them back into the fellowship once again.
Awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, Brother Randy, please leave your thoughts, leave your comments below in this box. Subscribe to my YouTube, follow him on Facebook, follow me on Facebook. We have so much more to share with you. Thank you all for tuning in, and God bless.